All right. I'm back after about a month of not recording the podcast. And let me tell you why. It's not that I just didn't want to record the podcast. It's actually I was recording another podcast with my dad. And if you've listened to this podcast, you probably have heard about it many, many, many times. But the other podcast is Leave the Light On. And it is actually my dad's story about his lived experience of being a drafted Vietnam veteran, a wounded Vietnam vet. That he, at the age of 19, he actually received his draft papers to go to Vietnam. He was drafted, left my mom at the time, and on leave, my brother was conceived, and while he was in Vietnam, my mom was actually pregnant with my oldest brother. And I had only heard my dad tell his story one time. And as we know, trauma impacts not just the individual, but also it can impact your family and generations to come. And I can tell you that my dad's PTSD, I won't say negatively impacted me, but it impacted me nonetheless. And I wanted to know more. So I started a new podcast called Leave the Light On, where my dad and I are just basically having a conversation of healing around his lived experience. He's told me stories from when he was a child all the way down to how he met my mom, and how my mom ran over him in a car because he was drunk and jumped out of a vehicle. Not only did she run over him, but she backed over him and then ran back over him again. So things that we just never discussed. My dad was pretty private when it came to those mistakes in his life until now. So if you are in a situation where you know that maybe your parents have experienced something, especially if they're veterans, especially if they're war veterans, especially if they were wounded, I highly encourage you to listen to this new podcast. We have only recorded 3 episodes, and actually tomorrow we're recording our 4th. And how it came about was I found a giant box of letters between my mom and dad, my mom and my grandparents. I found all of the Western Union telegrams of my dad when he was wounded. And so I started going through this giant box and found so much information that, being that I am trauma informed, I thought, wow, this is an opportunity for me to heal some of the lineage of my family, to heal some of the experiences that my dad had. So that was one of the reasons that I had to take a pause. And the other reason is something I am super excited about. And if you were listened to a couple episodes ago, you know that I have an amazing co-author team. And we have just submitted a full draft, the full first draft of our book to Harvard Education Press. And our book will be coming out in the spring of 2025. We are in the first round of editing. And let me tell you, this team is dynamic. Ingrid Cochran, Dr. Julie Kurtz, we have Dr. Julie Nicholson and Dr. Noyes, Tanisha Noyes, who I'm telling you all, just going through this process of writing and storytelling and reflecting and researching has been something that has been pretty profound for me as a professional and educator, to the point that I'm pretty sure I'm going back to be in a school, and more of that to come. But I have just felt this draw of getting back into the schools, because I certainly know it isn't any easier now than it's ever been. To be quite honest, it's more complicated. And I think people who are operating in the mindset that we are, trauma-informed educators, we need to be in schools. We need to be supporting students, adults, communities, and ourselves in a collective way. So thank you all for allowing the pause again. And I take a pause here and there, sometimes longer, sometimes shorter, but I'm back. I'm back this week. I'm back next week. And I'm traveling to Los Angeles here in a couple days to do a couple sessions at the LA County Board of Education's mental health conference. So if you're in LA or in the LA area, or you work for the LA school district, I hope you get to come, and I'd love to meet you. And I'm going to be sharing a little of my experiences and some about really what the book is about in these 2 sessions. So nonetheless, thank you for giving me a few minutes to catch up, since it's been a while. But I am excited about this guest. We share a home state of Tennessee, And we have been talking about getting this guest on the podcast for a long time, and I think we've rescheduled several times. But Dr. Larissa Rector, also goes as Rissa to her friends, I just learned recently, has worked in education for more than 16 years. She has a PhD in literacy studies and research, and she currently is working at a school as an ELA middle school teacher. She was also working at Tennessee Tech University, where she taught graduate level research courses. And you may still be doing that, Dr. Rector. You'll have to tell us when you come on. She also owns a nonprofit organization called Snug as a Bug Foundation, and is a huge advocate for struggling students and helping to mitigate the barriers that often stand in their way. So, Dr. Rector, welcome. I'll try to call you Rissa, but anytime there's a doctor in front of someone's name, you have earned that title, so I will give it to you. You say don't, but welcome to the podcast. Tell us a little bit more about you and your educational journey.
Oh, wow. So it's quite extensive. But I started in education, it's been about 17 years ago, and I taught everything from kindergarten. I've taught, let's see, kindergarten, second, third, fourth, fifth grade ELA, sixth grade ELA, second grade gifted. And I have been in 3 different counties, 3 different school systems, all in Tennessee. And I also, like you said, worked at the university at Tennessee Tech for a couple of years. I am not doing that currently, but very similar to you. And I know that we do have some similarities as far as our journey, but I just really felt, do I need to turn it up a little bit? Can you hear me better now? I'm not sure that I can hear you. It shows that you're...
Oh, I can hear you. Go ahead. For some reason, your audio completely cut out. I'm not sure what happened. Keep going.
Okay. Yep. You just stopped me. You just stopped me if it does that again.
You're good.
Okay. But no, our journeys are very similar in the aspect of I had, left the school system. I had worked in 3 different school systems in Tennessee over the last 17 years. And I was at the university level for about 2 years and teaching teachers. And I loved it. I love helping teachers and teaching teachers. But like you said, I just really had that draw of wanting to be back in the schools. I wanted to be back around children and around teachers on a day-to-day basis, and kind of feeling like I was, doing my job to help and be there for those students that just, I feel like, needed me. And so I am just in the school system now. I'm not doing anything within the university currently. So my time is just spent with the school system, with my students, and of course with the nonprofit organization, like you said.
I can tell you my thought in this was because I know we were having conversations via Messenger a long time ago, and you're like, I think I'm going back. I think I'm going back. What are the options? It really goes to Brene Brown's quote, and you probably have heard it, and you probably have heard her talk, where it's, if you're not in the arena getting your butt kicked, which is not what she said, 2, then I'm not interested in your feedback, right?
Mm-hmm.
That resonates with me so much, because right now there is a butt kicking happening across our career in education, right? And there's so many factors that I think are leading to that. And I don't think it's any one simple thing, but what were you shocked at as coming back in? And I'm not talking about your specific school. I'm just talking general in this career of being an educator, because you have a vast experience in this. What shocked you the most when you came back to being a classroom teacher after being out for a bit?
I would like to say shocked and not shocked, because I feel like even in the last 17 years, we've had these issues. Obviously, I think that they've gotten worse to a certain extent, and also middle school is a whole different world. So, but not surprised at the help that these students need emotionally and on that level, but maybe the disconnect where, and we've all seen it. We all, those of us that work in education, there's this huge pull towards test scores and academics. And is that important? Absolutely. But I just don't feel like, children can't learn if they don't have that relationship with you first. And that was my major thing. I mean, I have two daughters of my own, and the oldest is in high school now. And just seeing the stress and the anxiety and the things that these kids are dealing with on a day to day basis, that I just wanted to be in the school system and around that so I could help if I could. But it's a lot different than even 17 years ago when you look at those things.
And I mean, I can tell you it's different than 2 years ago when I stepped out,
Mhm,
right?
mhm,
And I think, for those of you who know, I stepped back in January. I've been a principal coach since January, and watching these things that are being navigated through, and it's down to teacher shortages, right? That is
mhm,
a legit concern. And I'm not shocked there's a teacher shortage, because the way teachers are treated, nobody really wants to get into the profession, and people are leaving in droves. So, in our state of Tennessee and in our county of Nashville, all you have to have is a degree, and they will let you have a waiver
mhm,
for a year to get into the
mhm,
classroom. And I can tell you, theoretically, it sounds like a great idea. And there are some success stories by
mhm,
all
mhm,
means. But I can also say that I have personally watched professionals that are not educators come into the classroom and flounder and struggle with an
mhm,
intensity that is incomprehensible. And I give an analogy to a group of principals that I support. I said, it's basically like telling someone, I'm going to pay you, okay,
mhm,
right? To be a brain surgeon, and you just have to show up, and we're going to take care of you. And you show up the first day, and they hand you a scalpel.
mhm,
Someone's laying on a table. They close the door and they say, good luck. And that's what I've been watching happen is you have great human beings with huge hearts being thrown into a classroom with students with challenges, no
mhm,
matter where. I don't care if you're in rural America. I don't care if you're in affluent America. I don't care if you're in urban America. I don't care where you are. Our kids are not okay. And the data is very clear on that, right? And then you throw people into a classroom where they don't understand pedagogical background, they don't know teaching strategies. And then we're going, well, why are they struggling? And
mhm.
that to me has been a concern. And I think that there's space for people to come into this profession, but it has to be supported. What are some of the supports that you feel could benefit teachers right now? Not just permit teachers, not teachers that aren't certified, but teachers in general. What are some things that you're like, man, this I find very helpful as a seasoned teacher who has just now returned after being out of a couple of years?
I can actually speak to that personally because like I said, I taught teachers for 2 years. And I would say maybe half, maybe not half, but close, were coming in to get a graduate degree so that they could teach. Like you said, their bachelor's was in a completely different area, so they were completely new to the profession. And the way Tennessee does it is while they're working on that graduate level degree, they can go ahead and be teaching. So I had these teachers coming to me firsthand, because they knew I had at that point about 15 years in the classroom before going over to the university. And they were saying, I don't know how to do this. And so I saw that firsthand. And the main thing is, one, did they have the heart for it? Because they didn't all. Most of them did, but did they have the heart for it? And did they look at this as a different profession? Like, this is not like your business world. This is not, it's not even similar. I mean, you are dealing with children of all ages. And even the ones that might not have this super traumatic background, they have social media in their face all the time. And so, I mean, research shows that the stress and anxiety level of our high school students today is the same as someone that was put into a mental hospital in the 1950s. So, we have all of these issues. And so, one, I would just tell my teachers, to get to know their students, let them know that you're there for them, what makes them tick, what makes them want to learn. Because if they know you care about them, then they're going to want to learn. And then besides that, just how it works. How do you fit all these things into a day? How are you getting to know these students, but you're also teaching these standards? And you've got to have the academic scores, to keep your job. and really how to manage not only that balancing, but that stress level.
Well, and I think too, it's understanding what is success. And
Mhm.
and I certainly would never ask your opinion, but I'm going to share mine. We have pigeonholed what success is to the standardized assessment that is not showing success, right? And again, to me, it's by design. That's what I think. I think that the way that the test is designed and the change of in my career, I think I've seen the standards change. I don't know, 7 or 8 times.
Mhm.
So really, the data is uncomparable. But we continue to change the target, and then kids continue to fail. In the state of Tennessee, we have a retention law, for those of you who do not know, that kids who do not meet the grade level standard at third grade have a year. They have to go do summer school. They have to do enrichments. They have to do all kinds of things in order to potentially not be retained in the fourth grade. And now we're dealing with
Mhm.
what is this going to look like in fourth grade? Because now there's a high percentage of kids that are going to be retained. So there's so many pieces that we're dealing with here in our state. In many, many states, it's not just a Tennessee thing. This is a national issue in a lot of places, not to mention the data that is coming out right now. And, as I mentioned, I'm co-authoring a book. And so a lot of research went into this book. And, right now in 2021, there was, I don't know if you all are familiar with the RAND survey, but I have filled out the RAND survey for years because it's one of the top surveys for educators, and nearly 5,000 educators, principals, and teachers are feeling more burnt out, stressed out, depressed than they ever have in their careers right now. And we have to pause for a minute and say, why is this happening? Right. And here's what I've discovered, and I want to hear your opinion on this, is there is an us versus them happening, and it's pretty intense. It's us versus the kids, teachers versus the principals, teachers versus the parents, the principals versus the community versus the district versus the teachers. We are a divided profession right now, and everybody is floundering trying to get traction. And there's a book, if you don't feed your teachers, they'll eat the students. We're eating each other metaphorically, trying to get traction on how do we feel safe ourselves? How do we get consistency? But what have you seen in that? Do you feel this us versus them sometimes, and the conversations that you have, especially when you are a professor and you were hearing actual teachers coming in and learning? Were you hearing that mindset, or is that something that is just a nuance that I've been experiencing?
No, I definitely have heard that and obviously heard it for years, but educators in general, we are more stressed out. And I think it goes back to what you said. How do you define success? And you said you weren't going to ask my opinion, but I'm going to give a little bit of it.
You can give as much as you want. I don't want to put you on the spot. Please share all the opinion you want.
Yeah. And so to me, of course, success is being there for your students and teaching them life skills, teaching them that they matter, giving them hope, for something that they can achieve, and showing them that any possibility, is available to them. And if I have done that in a school year, if I have made that difference where they feel like they are capable of doing anything that they want to do, I feel like I have been successful. If I help other teachers, if I'm helping the school community in some way, with outreach or coming together to help these students, because we all know it takes an army. So I don't know why we're working in isolation, but it does. It takes an army. It takes everyone. I mean, we all have different expertise areas. So if we would just put those together, it would really make a big difference. However, we also know that success is often tied to test scores. And if you don't have those test scores, but you have a good relationship with students, it usually doesn't matter. I mean, it's usually looked at like that you have not had a successful school year. So that, I think, is what's bringing all of the stress on to teachers. It's just all of this pressure to perform, and the students are feeling it, teachers are feeling it, and the principals are feeling it. It's every level. It's just at a different level, but you always have someone over you, even our superintendents, that they feel this pressure to achieve, and show performance and show growth. And that's just, sometimes it's hard to do. And we can get into the whole, demographics and all that. It's just not going to look the same for every child or in every location.
It's almost like I wish there was research about it. Oh, there is. We call it stress contagion, right? Stress contagion is when we are stressed. It is contagious. It impacts. When we have stressed out principals, we have stressed out teachers. When we have stressed out teachers, we have stressed out students. When we have a stressed out community, we have a stressed out school. It is a process. The socio-ecological model of those rings, all the way from the big systems all the way down to the individual, they're impacted by stress. And I would say traditionally we are higher in stress, and I don't have the data for that, but I know I've seen it globally. This isn't a US issue, right? There's a large listenership of this podcast in Australia and New Zealand and across the UK, and I'm hearing the same things from everyone. People are just overwhelmed. And I'm going to go back and this is what Jonathan posted, and you know Jonathan just as well as I do. Jonathan said this earlier when I was talking about taking a break from podcasts and embracing the pause. That is that should be my next t-shirt. Matter of fact, Jonathan, I might just have to do that, because that's what we have to do. We have to embrace the pause, because sometimes we get caught up in the job and we forget about the work we're doing. We forget that we have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-year-olds in front of us, building the structures of their lived experience. And we are an integral part of the pieces of the puzzle that need to be placed to ensure that child can meet their fullest potential. Mm-hmm. And I think that in itself, the power of the pause, it's been clouded for many of us because it's becoming a job and we're forgetting about what we're actually doing. And I don't mean let's go visit our why. Why did you get into education? Yes, we all know that. But it's power of pause and looking at our teaching team and going, hey, y'all, if you need anything, this is what it needs to look like. If you need a pause, let's build that system for our team. If we need a pause in school, let's build our system. You know what, you all? Validating your administrators. I was one for 7 years, and I potentially will be one here shortly. You know, just coming and saying, you know what? That was a hard decision that you had to make, and I see it. Mm-hmm. It's really important. I'm part of a principal Facebook group that's 200,000 people. And there was a debate in there saying that teachers should not affirm their principals for Principal Appreciation Day because it's unethical. And I thought, interesting. Okay, don't do it on Principal Appreciation Day. If we all show appreciation for each other, right? Mm-hmm. Principals for teachers, teachers for principals, principals for kids, kids for teachers, teachers to kids, kids to community. It changes the dynamic of our schools. It changes the culture of where we operate. So I think we've got to get back to why are we doing this and what can we do to make it better? Because I also, and this is not going to be popular, and that's okay because I'm not about being popular really. I also think we're getting into a martyr mindset where everybody feels so attacked all the time that we don't feel we can do anything right now. Mm-hmm. And see, I'm an unapologetic disruptor. So tell me I'm not going to do something. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to do it well. I'm going to prove to you that it can be done. Mm-hmm. We've got to get back to saying we can do this. And yes, do we need more pay? Absolutely. Do we need lawmakers to listen to us? 100%. But we can advocate for those things while also doing what we know needs to happen in schools. We can do that. And here's the thing. Nobody can mandate that you have to be a jerk to kids. Mm-hmm. Nobody can mandate that you have to be a jerk to your colleagues. Nobody can mandate that you have to be a jerk to your administrator or administrators to your teachers or to your kids. Mm-hmm. Nobody can mandate that. They can't mandate being kind either, right? But we can make that choice. We can stay regulated. We can deal with our own mess and stuff and figure it all out so we can be present for people who maybe can't. But that was a rant. All right, Dr. Rector, tell us a little bit more things, something we haven't talked about on this podcast, and it's something that's near and dear to your heart. Medically fragile and students who may have disrupted education due to hospitalizations or medical issues. I know I certainly, as a principal, have experienced this and the challenges that come along with that. So tell us a little bit about a Snug as a Bug Foundation and what it does and why, because you're the founder, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So tell us what it is, why you do it, and all of that good stuff.
Okay, so it was a long time coming, actually. So I had this idea to start a nonprofit probably about 15 years ago. That's not when I started it. We've been in business about 2 years, but I've always had a heart for children and children that struggle. And I mean that physically, mentally, in all the ways. And we used to own a roller skating rink. And so I saw kids from all walks of life, and we had kids that would get sick. And I had told some friends of mine at the time and some family members that I wanted to start an organization where we could take things to the hospital to these children. And in my mind for years was pajamas. Like I love, as a parent, I love when my kids have new pajamas. They've taken a shower, bath, they're clean. They can put on these new pajamas. You can tell they feel better.
Don't lie. Do you call them pajamas or do you call them jammies? Don't lie.
I call them pajamas.
Oh man,
I
see, we're so
do.
much more refined. I'm a straight jammies. They're jammies. Anyway, keep going.
Yeah, we could do Snug is about jammies slogan for you. But yeah, so I thought pajamas, and then I got really busy with life and going back to school and finishing my last degree and all that. And I was talking to a friend after I'd finished my PhD, and I had told her about this idea I had a long time ago about sending pajamas to these kids in the hospital. And I was thinking at the time, like, how can I make this full circle? Because I'm busy, and I'm like, how can I tie everything together? My love for education, my love for children, my PhDs in literacy, and it just hit me. I'm like, duh, books and pajamas. And there is this learning loss, when children go into the hospital, especially for long amounts of time, they're away from school. And yes, there's virtual school, but they're usually too sick to do these things. And so I was like, that would be amazing if we could send books on these children's levels and pajamas so that their parents or family members or someone there with them could bond with them and read with them and kind of help, like I said, mitigate those barriers from them being out of school. And so we just kind of started it like 2 years ago, and it took off. We have hospitals all across the state of Tennessee now that we make donations to, and we have organizations that help us. We have a couple girls that do like beauty pageants, and they always just get tons of donations coming in. And so it's just been really, big on my heart for a long time. And we just really love making those donations. And we do Nashville quite a lot, also the Vanderbilt children. So.
Well, and what an awesome idea. And I don't know if you know this, but I started a nonprofit in 2008. I actually closed it during the pandemic, where we donated books via bicycle to students in underserved areas, low income areas, that they could take home, because we had learned that students didn't have books in their homes. And obviously we know why: priorities and financial, books are expensive. So the fact that I was a literacy coach, I have a huge literacy heart. I love that. And let's be honest, if you are an adult and had a childhood experience of being hospitalized for an extended period of time, which I did, I still remember looking at books. Because you can't go anywhere. You have to lay in the bed. You're hooked up to IVs. I still remember the power of those books. And I remember there were I had two little roommates in my little quad that we were in. And I remember us looking at them together, and I was little. I don't have many childhood memories like that. So it was very impactful. So the fact that you do that is amazing. And being a principal and I shared this before we went live, I have a student who I had the honor and privilege to walk along with him during his medical crises of being diagnosed with brain cancer. And just the familiarity of things for kids who are going through treatment. He is here from Nashville. His name is Atticus. Atticus, I know you're not listening, but your mom might be, because I know she does sometimes. But Atticus is from Nashville, but had to go to St. Louis for treatment because it was a very specialized chemo treatment. He was there for an extended period of time, almost a couple months actually. And the only people that came to see him were his family. He hadn't had anybody outside of his family. And I'm originally from right outside of St. Louis, and I was visiting my parents, and I texted his mom. Mind you, this was during the pandemic, so I assumed she would say no. I said, hey, I'm in St. Louis. I would love to surprise Addie, even if it's just outside in a wave. Can I come and say hi? This was when I was a principal. And she said, please, and just wear a mask, but he would love to see you. Dr. Rector, it changed my life. It changed my life. Just being around a kid with so much happening, yet joy at the same time. It changed my life. And actually, I can't find the link. I was trying to before we got on here, but I actually made a video of me getting to hang out with him as we were trying to raise money for his GoFundMe because his mom had to quit working for a while because she was supporting him. So powerful work, trauma informed work, right? We have to think too that when we say trauma, we don't just mean those traumas that happen at home. Medical trauma is a real thing. And I know that watching Addie go through his and watching his mom and his family go through it, every checkup was re-traumatizing. Every time they had to go for another PET scan was re-traumatizing. When he came back to school, we had to reacclimate. He spent a lot of time in the office with me hanging out because it was emotionally overwhelming for him to come back into the classroom. He didn't have any hair because of the surgery. One of his eyes was a little lagging, and there were so many emotions, right? And so the fact that you stepped in and said, hey, let's give kids books and let's give them something familiar is so powerful, and is something that we all can learn from and take from, right? I mean, and so in 2 years, tell me about the growth. What did it start out as? You started out small. You said now you're in counties. How did it kind of manifest itself and grow over time?
So we started, it was like, I want to say October. So it was a really good time to start because it was before the holidays. And we did a couple book drives. We did one at the university and one at one of the local schools. And we had quite a bit of things come in. So like I said, it started kind of small. I think our first donation was like maybe 100 books and pajamas, and that's pairs. So luckily with my background, I'm pretty good at like matching a 5T set of pajamas with a certain book level. And so I try to get that pretty close. So I would say about 100, which was a lot. And it was a lot of work to get that many donations, and I'm using like just random Ziploc bags and trying to put stuff together, printing these cards from my printer, that kind of thing. But the more people that kind of started hearing about it, like I said, our biggest supporters have been some of these local girls that do these beauty pageants, and they do a lot of community projects. And so the last time that one of these little girls did this, she had everyone bring something, to the pageant. So she dropped off at my doorstep 647 items that time. So at that point, and we deliver stuff every few months, so we have time to kind of accumulate, and I have time to sort and all that good stuff. But I think we had about 1,000 that we donated to Vanderbilt at Children's during that time. So our last several shipments have been something like that.
Wow. I mean, that is remarkable. And it's like little glimmers, right? And I don't know if there's been all kinds of, I've seen it on social media about glimmers, right? It's the difference between being activated or triggers, right? It's those little sparkles that go, that made me feel really human. Yeah. In a good way, right? Because when we're talking that activators or what some people refer to as triggers, those make you feel human too, but on the other end of the spectrum, right? So we're talking those glimmers of going, wow, that was kids who, and I've been to Vanderbilt Children's. I've been through and volunteered before, and I've been to visit kids. It is no joke. And just those pajamas and books and familiarity and being able to have that token is a opportunity for a lot of people to support when they go, I don't know what to do. Yeah. Well, donate books and pajamas. I mean, it's not, I love that this is an idea that anybody can anybody can give to. So do you have a website? Do you have social media? How do people find out more?
We do. So the website's probably the best one to go to, that, or we do have an Instagram page also, but it's snugisabugfoundation.org.
Awesome.
Yep. And same for Instagram, just Snug is a Bug Foundation.
And what about if people are like, I love this idea. How do I, because you say you're starting to spread them all around the state. What if people are like, can people organize their own Snug and a Bug? Do they go through you? What does that look like if they want to maybe help support what you're trying to do in their local areas?
So we're really flexible. We take any donations. So we do personal donations. Sometimes it's just someone going shopping and bringing, 5 or 6 or 7 items. Or if you want to do your own little event, they always, ask me first. But like the girls that have done beauty pageant events, they will say, "Hey, can I do this as my community project?" And of course, that's amazing. And they do the whole thing. And then once they get all those, collected, then they bring them to me. You can also, if I have a few from other states, mostly family members, but we have a PO box, and that's also on the website that they'll just ship them. They'll just mail them. And so I just check that, like once a week or something, and pick those up. So you can mail things. You can Venmo, some people do like gift cards or something through the website. Or if you're anywhere local, I will come meet you. I'm kind of all over the place. I'll come to, Cookeville, Nashville, Knoxville, and pick some up. So we're pretty flexible.
You all, this is the power of educators. I mean, it is. And it's this, educators are, when people, they tritely say this, it's superheroes. We're literally changing the lives of kids. And this is just one of many, Dr. Rector is just one of many educators who shows up in a classroom every single day to teach kids. And then on quote unquote spare time is collecting books and pajamas to give the kids who are going through medical crises of their own with their families. This is what educators do, right? And when we talk about people coming into the profession and not knowing, looking at it as a job and forgetting about the work that we do, this is what we're talking about, right? Nobody can take being an educator out of my heart. It just isn't going to happen. Nobody can take this deep rooted fire and passion for seeing kids be successful and unapologetically disrupting archaic processes and systems. And I don't mean school systems. I mean systems that have been in place, right, for a long time, because it's the way it's always been. To see kids thriving in a different world than I grew up in, and even in a different world than we've all been in the last 10 years. This is a completely different experience for all of us. And, the research is very clear. Post-pandemic world is different. Post watching the racial reckoning that happened post George Floyd is a different world we live in. Equity is a focus that many are trying to snuff out, that our kids just aren't going to let snuff out anymore, right? What is right or what is wrong, no matter what has been told to you, kids are starting to go, that's just not right.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever that is, right? That's just not right. And we're not going to stand behind it anymore. This is the new normal that we've got to adjust to. And what I've learned is so many times that we've just tried to do more of what we've always done.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? We're getting results that we've always gotten. And that is dysregulated kids. That is kids going, I can't do this anymore. We've got kids that are just feeling hopeless. We have adults that are feeling hopeless. We have systems that are feeling hopeless. But at the end of the day, as I told my teachers when I was a principal, nobody is coming to save us.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody. When they say, as a matter of fact, every time I do a keynote, I usually say, I'll tell you the answer. I'm going to give you the answer before I leave.
Mm-hmm.
We are the answer. We are the answer. And that doesn't mean that we go and we bury ourselves working 23 hours out of a 24 hour. That isn't what that means. That means we showing up in our regulated selves, taking care of our own needs. So when we are present and making sure we have those boundaries that are healthy for us, our families, while also doing our job to the nth degree that we possibly can every single day. And that means something different every day.
Mm-hmm.
Some days you can show up full, some days you show up half, but you're still showing up what you can. And I think that's key. So the last thing I ask every guest, Dr. Rector, is what do you want educators to know from you right now? And you can pause for a minute if you want to think through it.
Well, actually, I'm just going to give it what comes to my head, because my little ones who I kicked out for an hour just show back up. But I was just going to say, so my workers for Snug is a Bug are these. I have my littlest one and my oldest one and my kids in class.
Love that.
That is who helps me with the organization. And this year being back in the classroom, my students came to me wanting to help. Because they found my website, they had seen me sorting books, and they help me. So I have some that are like beta club members, and they'll stay after school and sort books. And I have one little girl, bless her heart. It's been amazing. She is amazing. 12 years old. And she's been reaching out to hospitals for me and emailing, asking if we can bring stuff. And what I love more than anything is when she texts me or emails me, to let me know. She says, Dr. Rector, I told them that our times are this, and we can bring them at this time. Just her using those words, that she feels part of it. And I know that she feels like she's making a difference, and so do these other kids. And so just having the ability to do something like that. And I wouldn't be able to do it if I wasn't in this setting. And I think maybe that's why I was so drawn back to the school and back to, the children and teachers.
Empowerment. That's what it comes down to. We've got to quit thinking we have to control everything that our kids do every day in our schools. It's about empowerment. I learned it as a principal. My theory was always, if it doesn't take a degree, let the kids do it. Empowerment and making them be a part, not feel a part, be a part of something is so very important. And we do not give our kids credit enough for what they're capable of accomplishing. And I don't mean test scores. I don't mean learning. I'm talking about let's give them a problem and let's watch them solve it. Mm-hmm. Right? I almost broke out on Vanilla Ice for you 90 kids. That was almost the Vanilla Ice lyrics. It was very close. But close. I love that, Dr. Rector. And I love that you're sharing that this is what kids do for you, with you, for their community. I encourage every educator, if you do not have your students doing something that positively impacts their community, start it August 1st when you come back to school. It is a game changer. It's something I've always believed in. Well, thank you so much for being on here. I greatly appreciate it. It's a very fast 45 minutes as we suspected it would be, but I will be back next week with a music teacher from the Chester County Intermediate Unit School District in Chester County, Pennsylvania, who's going to talk about how she uses regulating strategies in music to help kids understand regulation, and she models co-regulation. So I'll see you next week. And as always, please, please, please go into the world and do something awesome.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry, I forgot to tell you, I had everybody that's live. Hey, we're still here. I just had to pause the recording device. Thank you all for who was on here and stayed with us. Really appreciate it. Thank you for those of you who made comments. Thank you, Jonathan, for being a part every time that I do the podcast and for your advocacy for this work. So thank you all.
See you, Jonathan, or not see you, but hear from you. He's an amazing educator as well.
He is. If I could get him to come to Nashville, come on over. I would hire you in a minute, Jonathan. Anyways, all right. Well, thank you all for streaming. If you'll give me just a minute, Dr. Rector, I'm going to close this stream out and I will say bye in just a second.
Okay.